As a 21st century civil rights organization, we are engaged in battles across so many fronts: voting rights, community development, education, housing. When we take a step back and view it from 30,000 feet, we can see that racial discrimination is really baked into the infrastructure of our society.
The battle for civil rights is taking place in many forums right now. It's taking place in the streets with demonstrations and protests. It's taking place in legislatures with civil rights laws, and it's taking place in the courts. Through our network of pro bono attorneys, we provide attorneys to assist the litigant who has come to court on his or her own with navigating the system and with getting access to the justice that they deserve.
Chicago Lawyers Committee helped us through a really complex time and complex issues that, in full transparency, without Chicago Lawyers Committee, I am quite certain that Greater Englewood Community Development Corporation would not be here to continue their service to the Englewood community.
In the community where I live, it's nothing but, it's a food desert. So what do? We grow our own food, and we need the access of water from the city for that to happen.
COVID has really just exacerbated all of the problems, issues, frustrations that Black and brown communities have had for generations upon generations. Particularly in the educational context, we've seen continued disparities in discipline, lack of access to educational resources, penalization for students who don't have the same kind of financial resources or technological supports and resources to remotely learn, and other manners and forms of lack of providing adequate education that's impacting students who are typically very vulnerable.
For decades, Illinois intentionally criminalized Black and brown people and poor people through the unjust and unequal policing, prosecution, and enforcement of drug laws. Where 2 years after cannabis legalization, the industry is making billions for white-owned companies, the state is paying off debts using cannabis taxes, yet Black and brown people are still locked out of the business and are even getting arrested and evicted at higher rates for cannabis in Chicago.
Even in Illinois, even in 2021, we see disparities based on race when it comes to access to voter registration, when it comes to how long of a wait time there is at the polling place, when it comes to whether someone can access voting materials in the language that they feel comfortable in.
We need lawyers who are willing to represent these litigants. We need donors who are willing to financially support this work. And we need people who are raising their voices on behalf of equality and equity in access to the courts.
We have the most amazing work culture. Our staff is dedicated to the mission and are really passionate about addressing inequities and injustices in our underserved communities.
Pro Bono Works is one of the largest and most diverse pro bono programs in Chicago. Thanks to our member law firms and pro bono partners like Skadden and Deckert, we provided over 700 volunteer attorneys and more than 12,000 hours of pro bono legal assistance in 2020 alone.
There's so much bureaucracy, there's so much red tape, and we had to have an organization to explain to us, to interpret, to get all of those fine-tuning of how to acquire the fire hydrant.
So we're forever grateful for the Pro Bono Works program provided by the Chicago Lawyers Committee. And so we're thankful for the service they provided and that we continue to have in that partnership with them.
But we try to, again, work with community leaders, parents, to figure out what their needs are, to hear what their needs are, to listen to them, and then to respond accordingly by flexing our legal muscle.
The Chicago Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights has been instrumental in supporting our coalition throughout the fight for cannabis justice and equity. The legal expertise and guidance provided, coupled with organizing guidance, helped ensure the coalition's campaign was organized in a calculated and effective way. This expertise ultimately led us to campaign victory.
It is so important to have free legal expertise. When you think about per hour for an attorney, there's no way we could afford that.
This fight for equal access to the courts will continue as long as there is income inequality and as long as there is discrimination against persons based on race and color and national origin and sex and their status as prisoners. We will continue to fight until victory is won.
We will fight for as long as it takes until victory is won.
We're going to keep fighting until victory is won.
We can't win this battle alone. We need your support to continue the fight.
We each have a part to play in helping to ensure equality and freedom for our neighbors, our families, and ourselves. Join us in the battle to make sure that everyone has access to the American dream.